Welcome to our Brightwheel webinar, everyone. Today's title of the webinar is How to Build a Strong Transition Plan for New Children in Your Program. And before we get started, let's do a quick introduction to Brightwheel. We are the #1 rated app for early educators. Our goal is to save you time on family communications and operations. So that means less paperwork for you and doing more things that you love to do as educators. And as you can see from the screen, Brightwheel is an all-in-one solution to help you manage your center or preschool more effectively. With Brightwheel, you'll be able to communicate with families and share photos and videos to give them a window into their child's day, as well as you'll be able to check in children in and out and manage your admissions and even collect tuition online. So these are all wonderful ways that you can support your families and yourself too, as well as your staff. So improve family satisfaction, give your teachers more time with their children, and more importantly, operate with less stress. So some quick housekeeping notes for you. We will be emailing you the recording of today's webinar. So don't worry if you need to leave early, pick up the phone, or attend to a child. You can rewatch at any time and feel free to forward to any colleagues who couldn't make it today, but who would benefit from this training. You should also have the recording by tomorrow at the latest, so check your email. And at the end of the webinar, you'll be given a certificate of attendance. So whether you're watching with us now or sometime in the future, just make sure to watch all the way until the end so I can give you that link. And there will be a blank spot for you to be able to fill in your own name so you can print it out and save it for your records. At the end, we'll also have some time for Q&A. So if you can just take a moment now to locate your Q&A button on your Zoom controls at the bottom of the window, you'll see 2 little chat bubbles. You'll use that to ask any questions for us at the end. It just helps us be able to see all those questions and get them answered. Okay, so we'll go over our agenda in just a few minutes. We'll jump into our main presentation on how to build a strong transition plan for new children in your program. Then we'll save some time for Q&A from our audience, and then following that, we'll do a quick wrap up where I will share your certificate of attendance. And lastly, we'll end with an optional Brightwheel overview for anyone who's interested to learn more about how we can help their center. Okay, so if you're just joining us, again, our topic for today is how to build a strong transition plan for children in your program. And I want to start off with this quote from author and speaker William Bridges, who said, "Change is an event, but a transition is the process that you go through in response to that change." And just wanted to share that Bridges was really well known for his work in understanding transitions and supporting organizations with major changes. And the reason why I chose this quote to ground us in our work for today is that it is a reminder that transition takes time and that it's a psychological process, not just for the children, but also for the teachers, for the parents, and for you as well, too. And as children are starting to transition into your program for the first time, we really want to talk about how this is a time for your teachers to shine in their expertise of child development. It is the first time that parents get to see your teachers in this professional capacity. And so we really want to have a strong transition plan so that we can support the teachers as experts in the field. We can also educate parents on best practices and developmentally appropriate ways to separate from their child. And we can also honor children during this time, honor their feelings, honor their developmental journey, and make sure that we're putting them at the center of the work that we're doing. And on a very practical level, strong transition plans just make everyone's life a lot easier. And if you have spent time in the classroom, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's just a great, easy way to support your children and your families, and and avoid some of those transition hiccups that that I think we've all experienced in the past. Okay, so the first day of school or joining a program can bring up a lot of emotions. And I know this is definitely true for me as I transitioned my child into kindergarten this year. There was emotions for her, emotions for me, emotions from the teacher. And these are some of the things that are experienced by both the children, the parents, and the teachers alike. Many folks are feeling nervous. They're also feeling curious and excited, overwhelmed perhaps, and I think in a lot of cases hopeful, right? hopeful for what this new chapter will bring. So these are just some of the things that we want to orient ourselves as we're thinking about transition being a psychological process. There are emotions, there are feelings that accompany this time. And wanted to share too about what the experts are saying when it comes to adjusting to this period. So according to Dr. Heather Wittenberg, a child psychologist, a young child's adjustment period to a new childcare or preschool may take anywhere from 1 day to 4 weeks, depending on their temperament. I think on average, most teachers and directors might say that it's probably closer to 2 to 3 weeks. But just knowing that is there's a spectrum for what this may look like for each individual child. So research shows that children's temperament actually has a significant impact on how well children will adjust to school. So having a strong transition plan will support children who typically have a more challenging time with new experiences be able to better deal with this new chapter in their life. And so again, children are not the only ones who are doing this adjusting, so are families and so are teachers. So just know that this can be up to a month's worth of time that we're in this space of transitioning. Okay, so authors of Practical Wisdom for Parents, Nancy Schulman and Ellen Birnbaum, described in their book different separation styles that children have and that they have seen over the decades as directors. Now, of course, no child can be pigeonholed into any one of these archetypes, but again, it's really helpful to understand what are typical ways that children may process during transition. So by having a clear understanding of this, we can then adapt our strategies. Parents can adapt their strategies to meet their individual child's needs. And another reason why this is super important to take a look at and to consider is that because parents sometimes may have a different separation style than the children who are undergoing the transition and separation. So you may have a parent who is super emotional and super sentimental about the whole process, and you may have a child who's just eager to jump right in. So we want to make sure that parents and children's separation style are somewhat compatible. So I've taken some of their separation styles and summarized them here for us so that we can take a look at it together. The child who doesn't look back. So this is the child who's eager to get started. They can't wait. And in here, the parents really should just be saying goodbye as quickly as possible and not take it personally if the child is not interested in having a longer goodbye. And then we also have the child who cries. I think we've all experienced this. And here we want to make sure that the parent is super calm, that they acknowledge that, goodbyes are difficult and that they know that they will return later. As well as we have the brave one. And this is kind of more of my child, which I thought was really interesting as I was reading on this. And this child is really focused on getting through that transition, right? They really just want to push through, and their goodbyes may be a little shorter too as well. So we want to make sure that parents are not pushing them for a goodbye. And then we also have the delayed reactor. And this is a child who is initially okay. They're super excited about being in school, but then they realize, oh, I'm going to be separating from mom or dad, or they've already left, and the feelings start to catch up with them. And in this case, parents really want to do some of this work at home, talking about the positives of being with their friends and their teachers and engage in the activities they love at school. So as they go back to school, they're not apprehensive about the separation, but they are really ready to separate. And then you have the solitary child who wants to process alone. And parents here should really just respect this child's transition space and strategy. There's no reason to really do anything much more than just saying goodbye and letting them know that you'll be back later. And then you have the observer. And this is something that I think we've all seen too, the child who really just wants to observe before participating. And here the parent really needs to be doing some work in the home by reading some books and playing school. So that way that child becomes much more comfortable in engaging and participating in the activities. So as you know, there's a lot to cover when it comes to transitions. So to get us organized, I really wanted to just break up this idea of transitions into 3 principles, and that's going to be preparation, practice, and partnership. And as you can tell, I love my alliterations, so we have 3 P's to consider for today. Our first principle is preparation. And in order to prepare a child who's transitioning into a program, there are a few things that parents and teachers alike need to start thinking about in advance to the child's first day. So when we're thinking about the families, we want to let them know that they should start talking to their child about transitioning to the program a week or two before, and really no sooner than that, because children do not have a concept of time, and any more than that will just probably not be helpful and or create anxiety, induce anxiety. So you really want to encourage parents to share with their child, what does school look like, right? What happens there? Who will be there? What are the teachers' names? What are the children's names if you have that information? What does it look like physically? And if you can, it would be great if you can take the child to do a walk around the school, so that way they can see what the school physically look like. That might be supportive in orienting them as well. Parents should be reading books about going to school and the first day of school jitters. This is a great way to start exploring feelings that may arise for a child on their first day. And if you can have these books, the same books that you're recommending in the classroom, even better, so the child can have that connection in school once they make that transition. And then we also want to start having families thinking about a new bedtime routine or earlier bedtime. A lot of times parents are waiting until the beginning of the school and the new school year to do all these different transitions to get their child prepared for school, but this needs to at least happen a week before, along with some other routines that we'll talk a little bit later on in the presentation. And then when it comes to connecting school with home, parents really need to consider what they will be sending to school for lunch and for snacks, if they are providing those items. What are some of the nap items they'll be sending home to school that will connect the child with their home? So just being thoughtful about food choices, being thoughtful about nap items like a lovey or a special blanket are great things for parents to start thinking about, so that they can make that connection for their child with home. And then one of my personal favorite things that a parent can do, and that a school can ask a parent to do, is to make a homemade book with family photos. It is super powerful for transitions. I have personal experience with this. It is something that really supports the child. Not only do the child know where they can find their own books at school, which is super powerful, but I've also seen other children bring other family books to another child who is having a hard time with separation. And so it's just a powerful way to really connect the child with home when they're having a hard time. And if you're interested in sending families instructions on how to create their own family books, you can definitely use the tips from NAYC. Sarah's going to go ahead and share that link in our chat room that gives you a step-by-step tips in order to create these handbooks at home. So really highly recommend this, and I think it'll be super beneficial. And then I've also added school recommended supplies. and I did this for two reasons. Number one, families are always looking for great recommendations for lunch boxes and water bottles. And I think it's also super helpful for you to provide this. Sometimes the products that are out there and available for families are slightly for older children, right? And so it requires a lot more fine motor skills to open up that water bottle or to open up that food container. And we want to make sure that the children are able to work independently. If there's any other things that you've thought about over the years that have really supported their children in the school, certain brands or certain types of things, you definitely want to make sure to have it in the list for parents to consider. Okay, so we've discussed what parents can be doing, and now we want to move on to what teachers can be doing to support in this preparation too as well. And here, I think this is something that most schools do already. We want to think about family intakes. I love doing family intakes at the family's home if possible, but I also know that things have been very different this year because of COVID, or maybe it has not been your practice. But I definitely still recommend it, and recommend doing it over Zoom if you have any concerns about being in the child's home, or maybe it's not an efficient use of your time at this time. So doing a family intake over Zoom is a great and convenient way to support your families by getting to know them and them getting to know you too as well. Teachers can also send meet your teachers letters, which I know a lot of centers already do this, and this is really super helpful for obvious reasons. Families can share that information with their child in advance, the picture of their child's teachers, and some other information that will help them connect a little easier on that first day. And then also something to consider is that if you are using Brightwheel, you can definitely upload this to the document hub and make this available to families. So just a quick way to make that information readily available to your families beforehand. And then teachers should also be preparing for a visit day, or what I like to call a play date, or even a phase-in schedule for their children. We'll talk a little bit more about this later, but I just wanted to put it out there that that's part of the preparation for teachers as well. And then last but not least, obviously teachers are preparing the classrooms in many different ways to welcome the children. But I really want to emphasize the importance of having children's pictures and names on their cubbies, on bathroom bins, anywhere that is holding a child's personal belonging. Not only does a child feel part of the classroom when they see their pictures and their names, but it also helps them to have a real physical sense of belonging. So you really want to make sure to do that. And if you can have pictures of families throughout the classroom, I think that's also very powerful alongside their homemade family book. So those are my two suggestions. And I think it really does go a long way in supporting a child feeling comfortable in a new space. Okay, so in one of my favorite books, Becoming the Parent That You Want to Be, the authors Laura Davis and Janice Kaiser remind us that goodbyes and reunions are an integral part of family life. So what does that mean? It means that in essence, every day at your center, children are practicing a real life skill that will take them throughout their whole entire life. There's many times that we're separating and we're reuniting with families, and this happens up until adulthood or even through adulthood. So you really want to make sure to understand this as part of our responsibility to support children during this very memorable, but yet real life skill that they need. And the second principle here is really practice, right? You really want to make sure that that children are able to come to the center for a couple of hours so they can practice signing in. The parents are practicing signing in. They can practice putting away their own personal belongings. They can see and orient themselves inside the environment. They can get acquainted with their teachers. Now, if you're not allowing families into the classroom because of COVID, that's totally understandable. And we just need to be creative of how we're going to support the families and the children to be able to bond with the teachers over this time. So one of my suggestions is maybe taking the bonding time to a nearby park, having a picnic, and perhaps even having some activities, on a picnic blanket that the children can then do with the teachers to bond and get to know each other a little bit better. And then I also recommend sending a video tour that the teacher is doing with their own voice that shows, walking in through the school, walking to the classroom, putting away their belongings, washing their hands, all the steps that the child would take while they're in school during that first couple of days. So those are things that I think would be super important if you're not allowing children and parents coming in at the same time prior to their actual first day. I also recommend having a phase-in schedule, which I'm sure a lot of you already do. My recommendation is to do this starting on Wednesday, for example. And if you're only doing a few children at a time, or if you're only welcoming one or two children, I would recommend starting that day half an hour to an hour after school has started. So that way, the other children who are part of the school community, who already are acclimated and are settled, are able to really start their day, get settled in, and then that teacher can devote their undivided attention to the children. And I'm also calling this phase-in schedule the rehearsal because it's not quite a full day just yet, right? So on that first Wednesday, you would want to have children picked up right before lunch. So they're only there in the morning, maybe in time for morning meeting or circle time, and then they get picked up right before lunch. The second day, which would be a Thursday, the parents should pick up right after lunch, so before nap. And then on the third day, which is the last day, families should pick up right after nap. So as you can see, nap and the meal time is what really is supporting us to think about when they should be being picked up or picked up. And that's because meal times and nap times are extremely intimate times in a child's schedule. So giving them time to acclimate in the beginning and slowly introduce those times of their schedule and routines will be supportive in getting them ready for a longer day. And if you're willing and able to have families in the classroom during this phasing time, just make sure that it's not for too long and that they're truly flies on the walls. So they're engaged, they're reading a book or reading a magazine, but they're not coming into the classroom expecting for them to support their child or rescue their child in any way. This is really a time for the teacher and the child to bond and support each other. So that's one option. And as the day goes on, encourage the families to spend less and less time in the classroom because, again, you want to make sure that your child is starting to bond with that teacher, and the more time the parents spend there, the harder that becomes. And as the parents are leaving the classroom, this is really the time to start using, if you're using Brightwheel, start reassuring the parent that the child is okay by sending them messages and sending them pictures. And of course, if you're not using Brightwheel, you can definitely do this via email, or if you're using your cell phones, your personal cell phones, I'm not sure how that works for each individual schools, you might want to consider doing that. But that communication that their child is okay is super important in those very few beginning days when parents are stepping out of the classroom. And then for our last P, it is partnership. So as we know, family-parent partnership are super important. And honestly, transition time is the first test to this partnership. So we're going to discuss strategies for how we're going to invest in those relationships early on during this transition period. And then here's a great quote to ground us in this work again, and it's from the authors of A Visionary Director. Helping children separate and reconnect with families is a critical aspect of your work. Too often, programs view separation anxiety as a problem that children and parents must resolve on their own. And I don't know about you. I think that traditionally I've thought about it that way as a director. If I can be honest, I've thought about it as like, oh, this particular child and this particular family are having a hard time. But the reality is that it is an opportunity to really connect and partner with the families during this time. So I really want to encourage you all to think about it from this perspective if you haven't already. So we really want again to think about how we are going to connect with families and partner with them during this time. So one idea is having consistent morning and afternoon activities that families can join. And that could be singing or that can be dancing. And it just allows for the families to be on campus. Again, if you're allowing that and if that's something that you're able to do at this time. Another idea is to create a cozy reading nook for children and for families to read and snuggle together before saying goodbye. And many of you may already have this. It's something that we had as a practice in our schools, and it is really supportive to families feeling like there's a space that they can have too as well within the classroom where they can connect with their child physically. And if you're not allowing parents on site at this time, let's get creative about how you can use your outdoor spaces. Maybe you have some lawn in front of your school. Maybe there's an area of the yard that the parents can come through the outside to use as well. Maybe you can put down some blankets and some books, but just anything that may be supportive to families. And if you really are stuck with ideas, ask families their opinions and their advice and their suggestions, and the teachers as well. I'm sure they have plenty of ways to support with these types of ways to connect. And then for your teachers, you really want to make sure that they are intentionally connecting and reflecting on separation experiences. And the best way to do this is either during one-on-one individual conversations with families, especially those who are having a hard time, or through a newsletter. This is a great time to really talk candidly about how it has felt this past week, separating and transitioning, and what are the children are saying, what's happening in the classroom, what is the chatter in the classroom about the separation, how are the children coping, what are the parents saying? So this is a great time to bring that all together and really support the community by hearing what's happening inside the classroom and outside the classroom during this transition period. And then one admin had this wonderful suggestion, and I really recommend that you all do this too. If you're using Brightwheel, use Brightwheel to check the feeds so that when you're connecting with families at pickup or even drop off the next day, you're able to talk to the families about the children's day in a way that seems much more personable, that really shares and shows the families that you are invested in their child and this time of transition. So separation, offers a lot of opportunities for collaboration as well. Families can share their coping strategies that they use at home whenever they leave their child with another caregiver. Families can also provide objects from home to support their child during the day, like a lovey or another personal item from a parent. And then teachers can also share lesson plans with the parents. And this is a great way for the parents to be able to talk to children who are feeling anxious about what they can expect on any given day. And again, if you're using Brightwheel, admins can share lesson plans with parents. So that way parents can talk to their child and build some excitement around, the lesson plan. So, we're going to be talking about dinosaurs. And I know that my child really loves dinosaurs. This is a great way for that child to make that connection about what they can expect the next day at school. And then when it comes to community, you really want to invite parents to have shared experiences in the classrooms with their child, as we spoke a little earlier. And that may look like snacks at school one afternoon. And again, if you're not comfortable with this just yet, you can just make some adjustments to these ideas and plans. For example, you can have a simple whiteboard where families share, as sign in where they are, what they're having for dinner that day. So imagine all your family sharing spaghetti and meatballs, macaroni and cheese, whatever it is that you're having. But families are seeing that, families are connecting, families have an opportunity to feel part of a larger community. And then my last, and I think one of the most important ways to build community around this time of transition is having a family group discussion. So maybe you can have a night where all the parents are getting together and discussing what it has felt for them and during this transition period. Share the feelings, share the strategies, commiserate together, cry together, or even perhaps walk away with some new ideas. I think this is a great way for families to get to know each other and really bond over something really significant that is happening in their lives and in the lives of their children. Okay, so we're going to move over to strategies for families. We've seen a lot of this come through during our icebreaker, but we really want families to stay calm. That is the most important tip that you can give a family: stay calm, because children feed off their family's energy. Children might be interpreting their parents' apprehensiveness or, teary eyes as this is not a place that I can trust or people that I can trust, right? So you really want to make sure that families are staying calm. Creating a ritual, I think, is a very popular way that children and families have supported each other during goodbyes. So something like giving 3 heads on the forehead, it could be super powerful. And the reason why this really works developmentally is because, number one, there's an element of choice. Children choose how they get to say goodbye with their families, and that is a very unique and individual way that looks different from their neighbor. And then also it signals to the child that it is time to say goodbye. And because children don't have a good concept of time, knowing that their family is approaching them and initiating their goodbye ritual says to the child, okay, I need to prepare myself for the separation. And as others have shared during our chat and icebreaker, always say goodbye. Sneaking away is never a choice, never, ever, ever a choice. And the reason for this developmentally, if your parents need to know and understand, is because it erodes trust in the parent. And it also keeps that child super vigilant and not engaged. So they're, instead of worrying instead of thinking about where they can engage, who they can play with, what activity they can start, they're thinking about when is my parent going to leave? And that just creates unnecessary and undue anxiety for that child. Okay, so I don't know about you, but what's interesting is that during COVID, I actually saw less concerns with transitions than I did when there was no COVID. And I think, again, the reason for this is because it just reinforces a brief goodbye and a goodbye in a very consistent manner. So the same time and the same location, whether that be at the front of the door, whatever it is that you had to do in order to, make drop-offs different for COVID, it just really supported the children in a much better way. So I saw less teary eyes, I saw less children concerned, even for children joining our program for the very first time. So we really want to think about consistency. Again, children's internal clock needs predictability because they really can't tell time. So the more we can be consistent in our routines at home and at school, the better that child has a better sense of what's going to happen next. And parents should really think about minimizing all new things. The week before joining a new program, it is not the time to get a new pet. It is not the time to go on vacation. It is not the time to get a new caregiver, hiring a new nanny or hiring a new babysitter. It is not the time to start a new sleep routine or taking away bottles or taking away pacifiers or potty training. All those things have to be done in advance of this time because so many changes could really make things complicated for a child who is having to adjust to another change, which is that separation and being in a program. Also, minimizing demands on children's on children is super helpful. So a lot of times families, feel like, okay, you're making this big step as a big girl, as a big boy, joining, a school program. And so they start making demands about how their children have to do X, Y, and Z. You have to clean up all your toys, or you have to do this, or you have to do that. This is not the time to put those demands on the children. Again, you want things to be as consistent as possible, and parents really should pick their battles. And then you want to think about having more consistent time for connection as a parent too, as well. They need to really think about how they're going to build in more time in the mornings or even in the afternoon so they can have time to really connect. So one of my recommendations for parents is to park a little further away if they can, so that they can walk into school a little bit more. That gives them time to really, get their blood flowing, hold hands, talk about what they can expect. It's just something to build in more time together during the mornings. And then you also want to have clarity for their children. So again, keeping the goodbyes brief. I can't tell you how many parents would say goodbye to their child and then they would see another parent and they would start talking or having a conversation with a teacher. And that's confusing for a child. Like, are you or are you not leaving? So make that goodbye brief and walk out that door. And just making sure that the actual language that they're using with their child is super clear too. Like, goodbye, I'm leaving now and I'm going to be back later after nap. Or if a child's really having a hard time, I know it's hard to say goodbye to me this morning. I'm going to be back after lunch. Sarah will be here to support you and read your favorite book. Very clear, concise language that supports the child understanding what's happening now, how what I can expect, and what's going to happen in the meantime to help me feel better. And then the last one is confidence. Families' words and body language should reflect confidence in their child's capacity to cope with separation. Children are super resilient. We know that. Parents are starting to learn that. And it's really important that they know that their words and their body language can really support or be a detriment to their child's confidence. So a child should not be walked into school or should not be carried into school or strolled in a stroller if they can walk. They really should be walking on their own 2 feet if there are children who are walking. I've had to learn that lesson too as a parent myself. And I don't think any educator is exempt in going through this transition process with their own children. I remember that I had to let go of my child during the pandemic. That was really difficult, even though, I was very familiar with the school. And so some of the things that really helped me was to remember that she was okay and that she's resilient, that she can make this work, and she had all the techniques and all the coping mechanisms that she needed in order to be successful at this. When I picked her up on that very first day, she told me, I just told myself I can walk in if I want to. And that was it. And she just walked in. Again, it goes back to just having a choice, feeling really informed and feeling excited about these new opportunities. So as we're talking about transitions, just know that some transitions may take longer for a month. There are children who really have a difficult time. And so understanding and knowing these, how children may respond and some of these different trajectories for children who have a harder time could be supportive in thinking about strategies in advance. And one of the strategies that I absolutely love are persona dolls. And if you're not familiar with persona dolls, I really recommend you doing some research. But in a nutshell, persona dolls are dolls that live in the classroom as part of a community. They're different from your dramatic play dolls. They don't live in dramatic play. They can live on a shelf. They can live somewhere visible to their children, but they're not for the children to play with. But these dolls have their own identity, their own names, their own age, their own family background and structure, their own history that they live with and that children are aware of and know about. And those histories remain the same throughout the year. So we don't change their names or change who they are. But during this time, these dolls can be used to mirror a child's separation experience and tell the story about how they can cope. So one of the great things about this is that, and I actually have a really cool story. We had a child who was really having a difficult time in the classroom with some challenging behaviors, and our teachers used the persona doll to support with talking about these behaviors and how these behaviors are really difficult on other children. And the funniest thing is that the child was so far removed from the persona doll story that they themselves were raising their hand and suggesting solutions for how this persona doll can support themselves during this challenging time with these behaviors. So again, it's just a really great way for children to have these experiences and have this opportunity to share their feelings without necessarily being the center of attention during that time. Again, the social stories are very similar in that you can have teachers create social stories outlining the morning school routine and then writing it in first person or pictures of the child going through each step by step in the morning to support them in understanding what the process is and talking about what they can expect next. I've also found older children to love writing letters to their families and putting them in an envelope and sealing them and put them in their backpack for when their family picks them up at the end of the day, they can share that. And also making yourself available for a child. So I know that I've also, as a director, have created strategies where a parent will come in at a certain time when a teacher is available, either that's super early in the day or a little bit later in the day, and also to coincide with a teacher's shift. So just making yourself available, grabbing that child's hand and walking them through that process could be super supportive. And then for parents need to know that they need to arrive early if they want more support. Dropping off 10 minutes before they have to run off and go to their meeting is really not supportive or helpful to the child or to the staff or to the rest of the community. So arriving early is super important, as well as having consistent caregivers at drop off and pick up. If a child has to have a different person that they are separating from every single time, that makes it a little bit tougher. But on the flip side, if mom, for example, is the one that is causing a lot of that heartache and a lot of that transition concern, perhaps maybe having dad or grandma or someone else in the family drop off would be a much easier time for that child. And then the last thing is to really evaluate, for parents to really evaluate what can be improved in their separation routine. And that goes from anything that happens the minute they pick up that child to the next day when they drop off. So what time are they having dinner? What time are they going to sleep? What time are they thinking, are they waking the children up? All those things play a role in a child's ability to cope if their biological needs are not being met in a proper way. And we are here moving on to reunions. And we're getting super close to the end of our presentation here, but reunions are super important and families should know that they take as much care as we put into separation. So this is important that caregivers know that we need to think about the strategies and the ways that we're going to reconnect with our children. So the authors of A Practical Wisdom for Parents advises, as you greet your child, meet him at eye level and give them your undivided attention. And again, this seems super simple and super super obvious, but sometimes parents are distracted when they come into the classroom. Maybe they're still doing that last email. Maybe they're still texting someone. I would advise not to have phones allowed, period, but they really should have this opportunity to connect in a way that is really authentic and really, really solid for that family. So make sure that the families are aware, getting at their eye level, giving them a hug, and checking in with them is the best way to go about this. So why are reunions as challenging as separations? Well, the reason for this is that sometimes there's a lot of feelings that come about for a child when they are first reuniting with their families after a long day. And I experienced this with my own daughter. She was super fine when I first picked her up, super energetic. Teachers gave us a great report. The minute we got into the car, her mood changed. So there's a readjustment period that we have to be considerate about. So families should be prepared for their child to be emotional about reuniting. Maybe they're not happy to be reuniting for several reasons. They felt like they were left at school earlier in the day. They're not ready to leave school. All their needs have not been met biologically. Maybe they're hungry. Maybe they're tired still. So just be prepared to see upticks in tantrums, upset feelings, and even regressive behaviors like toilet accidents and sleep issues that were once resolved. And just know that it takes a lot of time a lot of time and energy to get to know new people, environments, and routines, and that can really play a role in the child's ability to cope with their feelings. So here's some strategies to share with your families in advance. Make sure to have a snack with you when you pick up. So that way, if your child is cranky, is hungry, they can have a snack before you take off in the car. Once you put them in the car seat, all of that makes a huge difference. And with Brightwheel, teachers can really log in their nap times and their meals, so that it can really help families see what's happening with their child biologically. Do they need a nap? Do they need any food? And that way they can do a better job at transitioning their child back at home. And then families and caregivers should also arrive on time to pick up. And this is really huge. I know this from personal experience. I was always the last child to get picked up, and I had really strong feelings about that. And even to this day, as a parent, I am super sensitive about when my child is picked up from school, because I don't want her feeling like she's the last one, an afterthought, didn't get picked up, or no one is thinking about her. So having families be consistent with the pickup time is extremely important. And then families and caregivers should also be aware that a child may need some quiet time and time to connect. So this is not a time to maybe run off to do some errands, go to the grocery store. It may be too much for a child. So maybe taking a moment in the car, listening to some music, reflecting on the day, even reading a book before you have to move on to your next routine might be super supportive with that child as well. And then the last one is that families should be asking specific questions about their child day. So you don't want to ask that dreaded question, what do you do at school today? It's probably one of the worst questions, just because it's so overwhelming for young children. And if you think about it, they can barely remember to bring their jackets and lunchbox home, much less answer a very broad question about what they did. So instead, you want to advise your parents to ask very specific questions, like, what did you have for snack today? Did you paint, or was there another favorite activity that that they might have engaged in? You want to ask, who did you sit at next to at lunch? These are all ways to really get more information, but not putting your child in a position where they have to recall everything that happened. So teachers can really recommend families to do a quick check on their Brightwheel feed before asking their child about their day, so that way they can ask questions that really prompt them, and that gives them more information about what happened in their day. So for example, if a parent sees in the feed that the child was painting, oh, tell me more about that painting that you did today, or tell me more about the magnetile tower that you built today. So very specific questions about specific activities can help jog their child's memory and help them be much more engaging in those conversations. Okay, I also want to save some time to share some helpful resources with you. I'm super excited to share about our free training series that is coming up. We'll be hosting a Better with Brightwheel Bootcamp on Thursday, August 25th, which is coming up next week. So we will show you how Brightwheel can support you in building trust with families, simplifying check-in and attendance, and improving your billing and admissions processes. So you don't want to miss out on this. You really want to sign up. Better with Brightwheel Bootcamp is for anyone and everyone who is interested to join or who is curious about Brightwheel. You'll be able to get an inside peek into how Brightwheel works if you're brand new to Brightwheel. And if you're an existing customer, you'll have a chance to learn or brush up on our best practices. Sarah will share that link in the chat so you have time to learn more about it and register, as well as join. And remember, it's completely free, so we can't wait to see you there. Another great resource that we have for you is tip sheets for families, helping your children transition into a new program. If you're using Brightwheel already, you can go ahead and upload this onto your document hub and make this available for your new families that will be joining your program. And this free tip sheet will help families to prepare their children for that transition, so it could be smooth. And it's something also too that will be just super important to remind families, things that they can be doing in advance of their child's transition. So Sarah's going to go ahead and also share this link in the chat so that you can download it if you haven't done so already. And I would like to invite you to follow us on Facebook. We post about our upcoming webinars and all the latest tools and resources that we have. So you want to make sure to follow us so you never miss an update, or stay on top of all things Brightwheel. Sarah will also share that link to our Brightwheel Facebook page in the chat, so you can click on it and start following us today. And when you close out of today's webinar, a survey will automatically pop up on your screen. Please take a minute or two to fill it out. This is super, super important for me and really valuable information for me. So I would really appreciate if you take a moment to do that. We would love to hear your thoughts on today's session, as well as hear any suggestions for future webinars. We take all that information and we really think carefully about what we would like to present on so that we make sure that we're meeting all of your needs as much as possible. So please fill out that survey. I would greatly, greatly appreciate it. And then for those of you who are curious to learn more about Brightwheel, how Brightwheel can help, I am going to go through a super quick overview. And then for those of you who are already using Brightwheel, who know everything that we do, please feel free to hop off the line. And thank you so much for joining us. So to learn more, stick around. So again, Brightwheel is an all-in-one solution that can help you manage your center. With Brightwheel, make your staff jobs easier and more rewarding through digital communication. You can also build stronger relationships with families through messaging, newsletters, and activity updates, as well as streamline your day-to-day operations. So we are officially in back-to-school season, and many of you have already opened your doors or will be doing so in the coming weeks. But just know that it's never too late to join the millions of educators and families who use Brightwheel every day. So we're super excited to show you how Brightwheel can help in the next few slides. As a quick overview of what Brightwheel can do, our messaging feature helps both teachers and admins quickly communicate with families. Parents are more likely to see a Brightwheel message than they are to see an email, so Brightwheel can really help to improve communication at your center. With our activity features, you and your teachers can share photos and video updates with a click of a button. This is such a great way to help your teachers get more recognition for all the hard work that they're doing, especially at the beginning of the year, and really showcase their education expertise and to build trust with families. And many teachers and directors have also loved our touchless check-in feature. Not only does it keep everyone safe and give everyone more peace of mind during COVID, but it also saves time to reduce lines during the busiest part of the day at any center, which are typically drop off and pick up. And finally, here's a little bit more details about our billing tools. With Brightwheel Billing, you can save hundreds of hours with automated tuition, centralized records, and accurate reporting. And here on the screen is a glimpse into the parents' experience so they can see how easy it is for families to pay securely online. So this is another tool that I think has really given directors a peace of mind and more flexibility throughout the year. So I'd highly recommend it to as well. And so that was a really quick Brightwheel overview. If you're not yet using Brightwheel and you're interested to learn more about how Brightwheel can help, please request a demo. You can do so at mybrightwheel.com/webinar-demo. Again, that is mybrightwheel.com/webinar-demo. You'll fill out a quick form and someone from our team will reach out and do a customized walkthrough with you to answer all of your questions. So please check us out. Again, mybrightwheel.com/webinar-demo to schedule a customized call. And we have officially reached the end. I want to thank you so, so much for joining us today. We sincerely appreciate all the hard work that you do. And we hope that you took away some strategies for transitioning your new children and families into the school year this year. Thank you so much.